We are live. Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, April 21st. My name is Lee Hayward, and today I'm running solo with this video chat. My co-host, Jeff Samatero, is absent today. He's actually playing a gig. He's a drummer in a band called the Conniption Fits, and they are playing an early gig today, so he is unable to make it. But I will do the best I can to pull off a video chat on my own. I've done many of these on my own, so I'm pretty sure I can handle it. For those of you who are new to these video chats, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people tuning in. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour, answering questions and topics of discussion related to fitness and nutrition. So if there's anything that you would like to discuss regarding your workouts, regarding your nutrition, regarding supplementation, any specific challenges you're dealing with when it comes to building muscle or losing fat, anything fitness, nutrition, health, and wellness related, feel free to type those questions and topics of discussion into our video chat window. Now, we are streaming from two platforms. We're streaming from Facebook as well as YouTube. So depending on where you are watching from, there may be a comments below if it's on Facebook. If you're on YouTube, there's a chat window to the side. But either one, type into the comments or chat window any questions, topics of discussion that you would like to discuss, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our video chat today. So before we get going, I'm just curious, who is tuning in? Let me know if you are tuning in live, and let me know where you're tuning in from. Because I know we usually get an international audience, and it's always interesting to see where people are tuning in from. So myself, I'm in Newfoundland, Canada, which is the most eastern point of North America. Just curious, where are you tuning in from? So let me know in the video chat, and we'll see. And again, also let me know if this is coming through loud and clear. I'm assuming it is. It seems to be coming through loud and clear on my end, right? But I always want to double check before, because I have had some situations where the mic wasn't connected or it was on mute or whatever, right? And I ended up going 10 minutes into a Q&A before I realized, no audio was coming through. Test. Can you hear me? I just got a notice then saying my mic was muted. And I was doing the audio and video check. I normally ask people if this is coming through loud and clear. And as soon as I did, I got a notice come up on my screen saying that my mic was muted. So can you hear me? Let me know if this is coming through loud and clear. I'm assuming it is, but please let me know, right? Fingers crossed. Can hear you now. All right, that's from Robert. Thank you, Robert. Glad. All right, and we have, yes, we can hear me. Good stuff. Awesome. All right, appreciate that. All right, I can hear you. Good. All right, it's working. We're confident. Much appreciated. So loud and clear. All right, lots of people saying that. Appreciate it, guys. Loud and clear from Jose as well. Jose is a regular to our video chats. Glad to have you joining in as well. We have M. Sims from Greensboro, North Carolina. We got a few people from North Carolina today. Welcome. Glad to have you joining in. Now, I will say that these video chats, I normally have been doing them later in the day, normally around 5 p.m. Eastern time. But just due to scheduling and convenience, we are going to be having them earlier. So for those of you who are regulars to these video chats, just want to give you a heads up. It's usually going to be either 12 or 1 p.m. Eastern time. I will post a notification earlier, either on Facebook as well as on YouTube, to let you know, but it's usually in that 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern time is where we're going to be having our live video Q&A from now on. So just want to give you that heads up for those of you who are, because I always get people after, hey, they're sitting around at 5 p.m. wondering where I'm to, but the good news is the replays are always posted up afterwards. So even if you do miss it, you can check it out after. All right, I'm hidden behind a big block of text here, so I'll read that and then block it out. Jose is saying, Lee, how are you? Do you have any experience or knowledge of low iron on the blood due to high-intensity weight training and cardio? Just had my physical done, and it shows that my iron levels are low. Did some research, and it says since athletes sweat a lot, they lose more than a sedentary person. I also use the sauna 5 days a week for 20 minutes. I'm talking to my doctor today about the results and see what he says. Your input would be greatly appreciated. And Jose is a regular to our video chat. That is a great question, Jose. And I love the fact that you're bringing that up. And I love the fact that you're getting your blood work done, right? You know, like it's so simple, but it's something that is so easy to neglect. And I'll do it later. And people ignore it until something is wrong, right? So the fact that you are getting this done, getting your physical done, getting your blood work done, staying on top of your health and fitness, kudos to you, right? I mean, more guys should definitely do that. And I know it's not always easy to do that, right? Because I don't want to go on to a side rant here, but post-pandemic healthcare, at least where we live, is suboptimal, to put it mildly. It's harder and harder to get any healthcare these days. You know, call an appointment with your doctor, and good luck if you can get an appointment even within a month. Like it's not as easy as it used to be. But the fact that you're doing it, I appreciate it. So I mean, I respect it for sure. I do have experience with low iron, and it's ironic that you mentioned that, because back in my early days of bodybuilding training, this was something that came up with me when I was getting a regular physical done, got my blood work done, and it showed up that I had low iron levels. And I was very serious about my training at the time. So I was still young. I don't remember the exact age, but I was in my 20s, right? So this was back in my early days. I mean, I started training since I was 12. So, I mean, I still had a fair bit of experience under my belt, and I was, competing in bodybuilding by then and everything else. So I was still quite active and quite experienced, even though I was young. But this was something that came up and showed up in my blood work, was low iron levels. And anybody who is physically active, you're placing more demands on your body. So you need more nourishment than the average sedentary person. So when you go looking at the recommended daily allowance for vitamins and minerals and calories and protein and all this stuff, if you are physically active, you're placing more demands on your body. You need more than the average sedentary person. Right? It's almost like trying to compare fuel requirements and say, okay, all cars require the same or have the same fuel consumption, right? A little 4-cylinder Honda has the same fuel consumption as a V8 NASCAR, because they're both cars and they all have the same fuel consumption. No, it's totally different, right? Like a little daily driver versus a race car or a high performance car has two totally different fuel consumptions, two totally different requirements. Same when it comes to your body, right? If you have the average person who's just not, their activity is just their day-to-day chores and going to work and going to the grocery store and blah blah blah, just doing your day-to-day thing, versus someone who's in the gym training for a couple hours a day, putting high intensity stress and demands on their body, whether it's through strength training, cardiovascular training, or athletic performance training. Their nutrition requirements are way up there. They need way more than the average person, and that includes nutrients like phone call. Just a second, guys. Should have muted my phone. And I will mute my phone now. There we go. Apologize for that. I lost my train of thought. Where was I to? I was talking about, nutrient requirements and stuff, but not just calories and macros and stuff, but the micronutrients. This is huge. Micronutrient intake is huge. It's the vitamins and the minerals and the electrolytes and all the little things that we need on micro levels that can make a big difference. And in my case, when I went to talk to my doctor about it and it came up that I had low iron levels, we just looked at dietary options first. He said, yeah, we can put you on supplementation to kind of band-aid the solution. But he recommended that I look into trying to correct it with dietary choices first. And some good choices for increasing your iron levels: red meat, like any type of red meat, is a good source of iron. Liver is like the superfood of iron. So beef liver or any type of liver, whatever type it is, because liver is like, that's where your body stores a lot of nutrients, and the most dense source of nutrients, especially for iron, is the liver. And he was saying like a serving of liver is like, taking a handful of iron pills as far as like the quantity. So I was eating red meat pretty much daily. Once, I found out I had low levels of iron in my blood. So I made sure to eat higher amounts of red meat. I was eating more whole eggs. Whole eggs is another great source of iron. And at least a couple times a week, probably 2 to 3 times a week, I was having a meal of liver. Now, liver is an acquired taste, all right? If it's prepared properly, like you get a nice liver and onions and it's cooked just right, it can taste pretty nice. I mean, it can be an enjoyable meal, but, it is an acquired taste. Like some people love it, some people hate it. I'm kind of in the middle, right? I can tolerate it, but I certainly don't love it. Like I'm not going to go out of my way for a meal of liver. But when I had low iron levels, I did go out of my way to eat it. And I would kind of force it down 2 to 3 times a week, along with trying to increase other sources of iron. So eggs, red meat, those are the best. Animal sources are the best. Now you can get iron through other foods. Plant-based foods do have iron, but the concentration and the availability and the absorption is not nearly as potent as animal-based foods. So again, I'm not going to go into the whole argument of plant-based diets versus mixed diets or whatever, but there's pros and cons to both, right? So, I mean, having a mixed diet that includes animal protein is certainly very advantageous with this. So that's what I would recommend. If you are not consuming a lot of red meat, bump up your intake of red meat. All right. If you're not consuming a lot of whole eggs, try to get some more whole eggs. Now, I'm not saying go crazy with it. Like, it's not like you got to start eating 2 pounds of steak a day and eating a dozen eggs a day. And, like the typical bodybuilding mindset, like all or nothing, like increase it a little bit. And also try to increase, your intake of liver. Even if you have 1 meal of liver a week, that will go a long way to bumping up your iron. As far as supplementation is concerned, you can get multivitamins that contain iron. You can get an iron supplement as well, right? You just go get the iron supplements. You may have to ask for them behind the counter, depending. Oh, here we go. My wife's going to take the phone. Thank you.
I want you to surprise me.
All right. I'll be out in a few minutes. Well, not in a few minutes. I'll be out in an hour. Lots of distractions for me today. Anyway, where was I to? Talking about iron supplements, that's what it was. You may have to ask behind the counter. I know in recent years, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but when we go to the drugstore or wherever, iron are not kept on the store shelves, at least here in Canada. You have to go to the pharmacist and say, hey, I would like a bottle of iron supplements, and they'll give them to you behind the counter. I mean, it's not like you need a prescription or anything for it, but you have to ask the pharmacist because they keep them behind the counter. So that's something that you can certainly look into. And you mentioned that you're going to have an appointment with your doctor to talk about this later today. So mention this stuff to him. And chances are he's probably going to say the same things. Increase your consumption of red meat, increase your consumption of iron, increase your consumption of whole eggs, to try and get some of that, and also look into the supplementation. So since I've done that, I actually reversed my low iron levels just through diet alone, just through the dietary choices. And then when I got my follow-up blood work, I think we did it 3 months later, after 3 months of purposely trying to eat higher iron foods. I had brought my iron levels back up into the normal healthy range. And in doing so, I felt stronger, had more energy, like recovery was better. Like I could notice a significant improvement. And the doctor also suggested for me to supplement with a multivitamin supplement that contained iron afterwards as an insurance policy to maintain that. So it's important, right? This stuff is important because like iron in and of itself, like it's not going to have a performance benefit. Like taking more than you need is not going to give you an edge. But if you have a deficiency, you're going to notice the effects of that deficiency. I mean, kind of put things in perspective. Like think of your car. If your car, putting more oil in the car than's required is not going to give you a performance edge. But if your car is low on oil, it's definitely going to be a performance deterrent, right? It's going to cause more wear and tear on your engine and eventually could cause engine failure. But more is not better. So you just want adequate levels, optimal levels, but you don't want to be going above that. And this is where a lot of people really screw up in the bodybuilding and fitness world, because they hear if a little bit is good, then more is better. And that's not the case when it comes to vitamins and minerals and things like that. You want optimal levels, not excessive levels, because if you go to the other extreme and you start having too high of iron, that has its own slew of problems. So we want optimal levels, and that's why it's important to get regular blood work and physicals and checkups and all that to make sure that you're in that optimal range. You're not too high, you're not too low, you're just right. It's like the Goldilocks rule, right? We don't want it too hot, we don't want it too cold, we want it just right. That's where we want to be, right in the middle. So Ben, it'd be interesting to see what your doctor has to say about this. All right, moving on. Let's see what else we got. We have Frost joining in. Welcome. Glad to have you tuning in. He is joining us from Egypt. Wow. That's a place I have never been, but you know what? I would love to go there sometime. That would be a very interesting destination for sure. He says, you're awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for the thanks for the vote of confidence there. Much appreciated. Naz, N-A-Z. I guess Naz or Naz. I don't know how. Lee, what do you recommend for recovering from a chest overtraining? I was doing bench press and have some pain at the initial push off. After the workout, my right shoulder pec area feels very tired and dead. That's probably not overtraining. That's probably a muscle strain or pull or tendon or ligament strain or pull. That sounds like the start of an injury more so than overtraining. If it was, there's a lot to unpack here with this, because there's soreness, there's injuries, and then there's overtraining, and they're all three different things. All right. So I'll try and break it down for you here now. Overtraining is doing too much activity for your body to recover from in general. It's not necessarily I overtrain my chest, I overtrain my biceps, I overtrain an individual body part. It's overtraining in general. It's like you're doing too much activity and not getting enough rest and recovery to allow your body to function. So it starts to burn out. You know, you're literally like digging yourself into a rut. Your volume of exercise and activity and stress levels that's on your body is more than your recovery, and you end up, instead of building yourself up, you're burning yourself out. And when it comes to overtraining, it's not just physical activity in the gym. It's not just lifting weights. It's not just doing cardio. It's not just doing sports and activities. It could be stress. Like if you're going through stressful times at work, stressful times of family situations or relationships or whatever, you got stress, financial stress, family stress, relationship stress, whatever, pandemic stress. If you're under stress, that drains your energy reserves. In fact, the biggest source, our biggest calorie burner is our mental energy. Mental energy is huge. It's amazing how much of your energy consumption is used up by the brain and mental energy. Like even though it's only small in terms of percentage of body size, percentage-wise, it is the biggest calorie burner. So if you're under a lot of mental stress, and that could be even like a student going through exam week at school, like that's a lot of stress. If you're under that kind of stress, that's contributing to it as well. So it's not just physical stress. It could be all the stress in general, and you're not recovering from that stress. That's overtraining when that gets into a prolonged period of time. What you're referring to here, and I'll just prop up your question again. You say you had pain in your chest, especially in the initial push-off, and you also mentioned your right shoulder pec area feels tired and dead. All right. That could be muscle soreness. Again, it's hard to know just based on a comment, but if the muscles are just sore and tired, that could be soreness because you did a hard workout. So now your muscles, they have that delayed onset muscle soreness. It's referred to as DOMS. So, and this is normal. You know, it's not an uncommon thing to have this. In fact, most people will get delayed onset muscle soreness. If they train hard, they're going to feel sore the day after, and usually for a few days after until the body recovers. So if this is something that starts to ease up within a few days, then it's just muscle soreness. If the pain lingers on and it's a sharp shooting pain, so like when you try to do any pressing activity, like a chest press or a fly or anything like that, or even just sometimes some household chores or anything where you're kind of pressing and moving the chest and shoulders in a certain way, if you feel that sharp shooting pain, that's usually a muscle strain or a tendon or ligament strain. Or it could be a tear, strain/tear, depending on how bad it is. So good soreness is that dull, achy feeling where the muscles are tired, the muscles are sore. I had a good workout, right? That delayed onset muscle soreness, that's referred to as good soreness. If it's a really sharp shooting, painful sensation where you try to move and like, oh, my shoulder is hurting, and you just get that sharp shooting pain And as soon as you feel that pain, like there's no strength, like you can't exert any strength, that's usually the sign of an injury. And the degree of the injury depends on, it could be a minor one that's going to heal up on its own within a week or two. It could be a major one where it's actually a full-on tear that could take a prolonged recovery period, or in some extreme cases, even surgery. If there's any bruising or muscle discoloration, that's a sign that there's something torn. Because when the muscles tear, the fibers tear, the blood vessels and everything else inside tear, and then they bruise. And so you'll get that purple blue discoloration, just like if you get a bruise on your arm, that's a blood vessel that's broke. If the muscle is torn, you'll get a bruising and discoloration, or deformation. Like if somebody tears a pec, sometimes their pec can actually roll. The muscle kind of like contracts because it's detached from the ligaments, so you don't get that full chest attaching to the shoulders and all around. You can actually have this big gap in your chest if there is a tear. So from the sounds of what you've posted there, I'm thinking it's just soreness. That's what it sounds like to me, but keep an eye on it. And if it doesn't start to heal up on its own within the next few days, you're starting to see some improvement within the next few days, it might be worthwhile to get it checked out, right? Like that's my rule of thumb when it comes to anything like this. If in doubt, get it checked out. But it sounds like you're just experiencing some soreness, and it should heal up on its own within a few days. All right, where else are we going there? Ange joining in. Ange Jeremy. Some days, 2,000 calories extra, just eating as much food as humanly possible. Sometimes I throw up in the middle of the night. Is that normal? Hell no. 2,000 calories above maintenance, eating as much food as humanly possible, and throwing up in the middle of the night. I don't know what world you're in, but that ain't normal. This is where I'd love to be able to just chat and say, like, why? Why are you eating 2,000 calories extra? And why are you trying to eat as much food as humanly possible? Eating to the point where you're throwing up. Like, that is not normal. I'm assuming you're trying to gain muscle, and force feeding yourself is not going to gain muscle. It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the whole nutrition thing. Like, a lot of people have this mindset, well, if some is good, more is better. That's the same thing when it comes to nutrition. They think, well, if I have a slight calorie surplus, that must be good. Well, if I have an extreme massive calorie surplus, that must be better. No. The best that you can hope to gain from that is just extra body fat. Like, that's a great recipe for getting obese and getting fat. I mean, your body is only going to take so much of that energy and convert it to lean muscle, and the rest is just going to get stored as excess body fat. And then all that extra stress on your body to have to process and utilize it, that's what creates a lot of health problems later on down the road, is when you have that extreme excess. If you're looking for a calorie surplus to gain muscle, shoot for, like, instead of a 2,000 calories extra, 200 calories extra. Like, whatever your maintenance calories are, then bump it up by a couple hundred calories. Like, that's enough to just tip the scale in favor of a slight calorie surplus, so that you have extra in reserve to utilize towards building muscle, but not so much in reserve that you're piling on pounds of extra body fat and disrupting your whole digestive system and causing all this discomfort to the point where you're throwing up. So that, again, I don't know what the goal of of what you're trying to achieve is, but if it is gaining muscle, a much smaller calorie surplus, like I'm talking like 200 calorie surplus, plenty, and strive to gain weight as slowly as possible. In fact, all you really want to do to gain muscle is to just not be in a deficit. That's it. Like, the diet that you would eat to gain lean muscle is very similar to the diet you would eat to lose body fat. It's just that the portions are a little higher so that you're not in a deficit, and you're able to recover from the workouts and have enough energy in reserve so that your body can use that energy to fuel and recover from the workouts and to build new muscle tissue, but not the excess where you're laying down layers of body fat and creating stress and all the extra problems that go along with it, like raised blood pressure, raised cholesterol, elevated blood sugar, and blah, 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 all the stuff that leads to metabolic disorder and health problems. That's what a 2,000 calorie surplus is going to end up causing long term. So scale it back. All right, what else we got there? We have Chris joining in. This is a good time. Great to see and listen to you. To your advice. All right. Much appreciated, Chris. And of course, when it comes to times, it's a good time for some and it's a terrible time for others. That's just the truth of it all. All right. But I'm glad it works out for you. And Chris is joining us from over in jolly old England. How's the weather over there these days? Right. Today, man, like we've been having some great weather here in Newfoundland over the last week or two in the past. But now, before I started the video chat, like it was literally snowflakes falling from the sky. So it's doesn't feel like spring, I can tell you that. Anyway, moving on. What else is he saying? Liver and onions and gravy, Charles Dickinson's favorite meal. And if Charles Dickinson was eating liver and onions and gravy, I bet he didn't have low iron. And Marwan saying, I love organ meats, ox liver, heart, and kidney. I mean, if you love organ meats like that, you know, the heart, the kidney, the brains, all that stuff, I mean, they are so nutrient dense, way more than the muscle meat, which is, you know, like your typical steak or chicken breast and that kind of stuff. The muscle meat, I mean, yeah, it's a great source of protein, but once you get into the organ meats, they are so nutrient dense, not just protein dense, but, you know, on the micronutrient dense, you know, all the vitamins and the minerals and the things like that. Again, it's a great source of nutrition. So yeah, if you enjoy them, I mean, put them into your eating plan. The only drawback with excessive meat, I mean, it is high in cholesterol and stuff like that. So again, it comes down to moderation. But if you have a deficiency in a particular vitamin or mineral or nutrient, organ meats is probably one of the best options, even better than supplementation. All right, Neil's joining in. Neil's a regular to our video chat. I think he tunes in every week. It says, good morning from across the world. What are your thoughts about avoiding soy protein as bodybuilders say? This is something it's really tricky to know for sure, because there's a lot of debate and questioning, like whether soy is good or bad and the health consequences. Personally, I kind of take that moderate approach with soy. Like, I don't go out of my way to consume soy protein. I used to when I was younger, because in fact, when I was really young, we used to buy soy protein from a local health food store, and we used to get it in bulk because it was a really cheap source of protein. In fact, that was like my first ever protein supplement back in the early days. And when I'm talking the early days, I'm talking like back in 1990, before the internet, before there was all this information about soy and whatever, whether it was elevates estrogen levels and this and that. We were getting soy protein from a local health food distributor in town, and they were giving us, like, we used to buy it by the 50-pound bags, not 50 pounds, like almost like, you know, like someone coming in with a 50-pound sack of potatoes or 50-pound sack of dog food. We were coming home with 50-pound sacks of soy protein. And that's what I used to use as my protein supplement of choice. And I did that for years. No, I mean, was it optimal? I don't know. Right? It served the purpose, and I did consume a lot of it. But as far as overall health issues from it, it's questionable, right? I mean, these days I look for higher quality sources of protein as a supplement. So like I usually look for whey protein supplements. That's my primary go-to. The premium like would be like a nice whey protein isolate with the fat and the lactose removed. That's what I personally use. But with that being said, is it going to cause problems? You know, it's really an individual thing, you know, and it's hard to say for sure, because I know some people who do consume soy products on a regular basis and they seem fine, you know, and other people will start spewing and talking about how terrible and whatever. So, you know, I'm just going to share, like you're asking for my thoughts on it. I don't go out of my way to consume excessive amounts of soy, but at the same time, I'm not the extremist where I'll, you know, modify my diet to eliminate it entirely. Like I'll still have soy sauce on my rice, you know, or if I'm making a stir-fry meal, I like to use soy sauce. I like the taste of it. It's a very low-calorie condiment option to add flavor to my food. I enjoy it. I'll go out and eat at, you know, Asian restaurants that may have soy products mixed in with it. Or, you know, if there's a stir fry that has some tofu in it, like I'm not going to freak out over it. But that's like the occasional thing. It's not something that I'm going to consume on a regular basis. Like I don't go out and buy tofu and soy protein and things like that myself, or soy milk or whatever, right? I would much rather have regular dairy products versus the soy alternatives. So that's my thoughts on it. I mean, I just think in moderation, I don't think it's a big issue, but I know everybody's going to have their own opinion on that one. I have made videos in the past downplaying it. In fact, if you do a search, there's an old video I made, it must be at least 10 years ago, where I was bitching and complaining about soy because I got on the bandwagon about it. But some of the stuff, my thoughts have changed over the years on a lot of these things. So I kind of have this more moderate approach view on a lot of this stuff. Yeah. But anyway, moving on. Let's see what else we got there. We have Lanta Goulsby, I think I'm pronouncing that right, saying, what's up? Video chat, that's what's up. I'm doing good. Thanks for joining in. And if I'm not mistaken, you must be a new person. That's a name that I can't say I've seen commenting on our video chats in the past. So welcome. Glad to have you joining into our video chat. Hope you get some value from it. And if you do have any questions, feel free to chime in and ask. Jose's follow-up to his previous question said, I just finished talking to my doctor. I told him all the things I do. He said maybe that is the issue. He wants to do an endoscopy just in case. I did increase my iron input, more green vegetables, flax seeds, hemp seeds, eating chicken once a day, and was red meat once a week. Going to start eating more red meat now since this was a follow-up. He really recommends the endoscopy. Gotcha. Yeah, the vegetables... yes, there is iron in vegetables, but it's not as concentrated as it is in animal foods, especially organ meats. Like organ meats are like concentrated sources of iron. Like as far as you're not going to get a more nutritionally dense source of iron than you are in organ meat. So if you have low iron, I would say organ meat at least once a week, regular red meat and eggs and things like that. Try to eat that multiple times a week, if not like have a serving every day. And again, when I'm saying a serving every day, I'm not talking like a 20-ounce steak every day or anything like that, but have some red meat on a regular basis. Same with eggs, like have a couple eggs with breakfast or, with a meal or a snack or whatever, but like more frequent feedings is what you're looking for. Not these sporadic, I eat meat once a week and I hope I get all my nutritional requirements from one meal of meat a week. No. Smaller, more frequent feedings is the way to go, especially if you have a nutritional deficiency that you're trying to improve. Okay. What else we got there? Wow, a namesake. I'm also Naz. All right. Welcome, Naz. Nazes. We have we have a couple Nazes joining in. What else we got? Jose's follow-up again saying, today I'm eating an Argentinian chorizo. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Skirt meat, sausage, and chicken. Tomorrow I'll take my wife out for a birthday to a Brazilian rodizio, all-you-can-eat meat. So like one of those Brazilian steakhouses, if I'm not mistaken, that type of thing. Yeah, so I mean, you're going to get some red meat then, but it should be something that you have as part of your regular meal for your home meals as well. I mean, obviously it's great to have it in restaurants, but restaurants are kind of like, the occasional thing for most folks is what you're having on your regular menu that you're preparing at home. That's the ones that's going to have the biggest impact on your nutritional intake. What else we got there? Naz is saying, Lee, it's been bothering me for 2 weeks, only during bench press push off. I've been doing light chest work like flies and bench with very low/no weight for home therapy from one of your videos. Yeah, that's probably an injury. And again, this is a follow-up question to the one that we discussed earlier about the strained pecs. He thought it was overtraining in the chest, it's not overtraining in the chest. It's actually a strained pec. So this is common, especially in the bench press, because a lot of guys, the bench press is that ego exercise. Very often we lift more weight than we should with the bench press. I don't know what it is, but it's ingrained. And I'm as guilty as the next person when it comes to this. When I look back over my own training, I have the two muscle groups that I've strained the most in my workouts, chest and biceps, because we have that tendency where we want to bench heavy, like how much can you bench, right? And you always I don't know what it is, but when chest day comes along, man, you gotta lift heavy, right? It's just that ego takes over and you want to bench and lift more than you're capable of in a lot of cases. Same thing when it comes to arms and biceps, right? We want to curl big dumbbells and we end up lifting more than we should. So those are two body parts that I've ended up injuring or straining more often than anything else. And you really just need to, like, if I know you've heard this before, but like, leave the ego at the door when it comes to chest training, bench press, all that stuff. Like, I was doing chest training today at the gym, and I was using 1 plate per side. 1 plate per side on the bench press. Now, I mean, for most experienced bodybuilders, 1 plate per side is not very impressive at all. But that's what I was doing. I was just doing multiple sets, higher reps, and I was doing 1 plate per side. I got an amazing pump, got an amazing chest workout, felt great, and no aches or pains afterwards. So I'm stimulating the muscle, not annihilating the muscle. And a lot of my workouts these days are very much like that. I'm not in, like, I really don't care about how much I'm lifting anymore. That's gone out the window. And thankfully, since I've been training that way, I've been able to be more consistent. I've had very little injuries or aches or pains. In fact, I can't remember the last time I've had a weight training related injury. It's been years, but I feel good, and it's allowing me to be consistent, good enough, but good enough consistently, and enjoy the process. And that's a big one. So, just, I think that's the thing. It's usually the root cause of all that is just lifting beyond your means. So if you can scale it back, even if you got to just scale it back 10, 20% on your lifts and kind of go through the motions, that will ultimately lead to better results in the long term. But in the meantime, you really need to let that heal. And if you do a search on YouTube for Lee Hayward pec strain, you'll see a video that I made basically talking about this in detail and showing some rehab exercises that you can do, which is probably the video that you watched. Follow the tips in that video, and that will help you in your rehab. But this could take a while. And when I say a while, like, it might be a month before you're back to normal again. Like, when you have a strain, like, it literally is a minor tear strain in the muscles or the tendons and the ligaments. So it's something that needs to rebuild and heal up. It's not just a bit of muscle soreness that can heal up within 72 hours, right? This is something, if it's prolonged, like it's been going on for a couple weeks, that means there's some joint tendon ligament strain going on there. I mean, it could be some inflammation. It could be a minor tear, something that needs some time to heal. So it's probably going to take you at least a month to get back into doing light, normal chest workouts again. And when you do get back into regular workouts again, start off with baby weights. Like, literally just go through the motions with very small weight, and then each week just gradually build it up slowly, right? Like, when I'm saying slowly, like, take a very light warm-up weight, and then the next week probably add 5 pounds to that, go through the motions, and the week after that add another 5 pounds, and just build it up very incrementally. Don't be in too big of a rush to start getting back to your previous weights that you were lifting before the injury, because you're in the danger zone right now, because you could take a minor injury and then turn it into a full-blown major injury if you try and bounce back too quickly. And I've done this myself, and I've seen this happen over and over again, where someone will, again, strain their chest bench pressing, say, oh, it hurts, and they'll take a week or two off, and then they feel, well, I took a week or two off, now I've lost ground, I got to make up for it, and then they go back to the gym and try to match their previous best lifts, and then when they're not able to do so, and they take that little minor strain, and then next thing you know, they get a full-blown pec tear out of it. And now what could have been a minor strain that could have healed up in maybe a month, now they got a pec tear, which may require surgery, may require months and months of rehab training, and in some cases it may never heal. And in fact, when it comes to pec tears, those are pretty major injuries. And when guys tear their pecs, they're usually scarred for life. Like, it's something that just doesn't heal up on its own. Like, you'll see guys, you do Google search, like, go Google images, pec tear, and you'll just see the deformed chests. And that's something they have to live with for the rest of their life, right? So you don't want to turn a minor injury into a major one by trying to bounce back too soon. So you're in that very critical danger zone here now. So caution, that's what I'm urging right here. Caution. Easy does it, and think of the long-term big picture, and not just trying to bounce back as quickly as possible and make gains in the short term. And just saying, I want to build as much muscle as possible. My cousin said he eats 4,000 calories over what he usually eats a day. He told me to eat 8 meals a day and get over 4,000 calories extra. I can't do it. And I can't blame you. And truth be known, I don't think your cousin could probably sustain that for very long either. Very few people can sustain a 4,000 calorie a day surplus. Like 4,000 calories a day alone is massive for most people, let alone a 4,000 surplus. Like that's astronomical. And again, what are you trying to achieve? Right? It's overkill. Right? It's again, as I mentioned before, like a slight surplus, just so that you're not in a deficit. That's all you need. Right? You just need enough to recover from your workouts and have energy to train and recover, and then let the process happen, not trying to force it to happen. When you try to force yourself to gain weight, you'll gain weight all right, but it's excess body fat. You can't force your body to gain muscle. You can only coax it, right? Training regularly, providing that muscle stimulation, letting it rest, recover, and grow, and providing adequate nutrition so that the process happens. But simply eating more food, like your muscles will take in what they can, and then once the glycogen levels are topped up, protein synthesis has happened. Like once everything's done, guess what happens to that other 3,700 calorie surplus? It's just going right around the middle. And yeah, you'll gain weight all right, and you'll probably look bigger in your clothes and everything else, and people will see the scale going up, and everyone say, wow, you're bulking up, you're getting big. Yeah, but it's getting big in terms of rolls of fat. When it comes time to actually try and diet all that extra weight off, what's going to end up happening is you'll have to go into such a calorie deficit that you very often lose the lean muscle you gained while bulking to try and get cut. And then it's just this, you're just spinning your wheels, right? You pile on all this body fat while bulking, and then you got to strip all that body fat off when cutting. And then very often you lose what muscle you gain. You're better off to take slow progress and just be in a very slight surplus and gain the muscle slowly and keep the body fat low in the process. I mean, that's what we focus on within the whole Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. And guys are staying lean, seeing their abdominal definition, like still having visible abs while slowly filling out their frame with lean muscle. And that's a much healthier and much more enjoyable process. And you're not going to be throwing up because of excess calorie consumption. All right, what else we got there? J.E. just asking if you've tried the trap bar for overhead presses. Feels like it hits the delts like no other. No, I haven't. I know a couple weeks ago, I think you were talking about trap bars, shoulder presses. We do have a trap bar at the gym that I train at, which is Omega Health and Fitness up in Paradise. But I have not tried it for the for shoulder presses. I usually use dumbbells or a shoulder press machine. They've got a really cool old school machine up at Omega Fitness. It's got like this standing shoulder press machine. They call it the Viking press. I love it. I actually did that one today. But that's what I usually use. But I've not yet tried the trap bar. I'm just curious. I'll have to probably just go on YouTube and search it myself. But like, how do you get in position for that? Because it's very hard to, I would assume, clean a trap bar to shoulders. Like if you're using a regular barbell, obviously you can unrack it from like squat rack or something like that. Or even if you're lifting it from the floor, you can kind of clean it to your shoulders like an Olympic lifter does. But a trap bar, that how do you get it up to shoulder height with unless you somehow set it up in a rack? I don't know. It just seems awkward to me, but I guess I'll figure it out on my own. I'll go on YouTube and find someone doing trap bar shoulder presses and figure it out. What else we got here? Robert's asking the question, does it make any kind of difference what kind of liver to eat? Not really. We're getting back to the whole high source of iron. I very often would eat beef liver. Sometimes I'd have the pork liver. If you get poultry, whether it's chicken or turkey, you can get that as well. It's the liver in all animals is like that's where we store so much of our nutrients, especially iron. So any form of liver from whatever animal it happens to be is going to be very concentrated in iron. So it really, I don't think it matters. I mean, obviously, I'm sure if we did go on Google and search the nutritional information for beef liver versus pork liver versus chicken liver versus bison liver, whatever, there's probably going to be some variances, but they're all going to be high in protein. They're all going to be high in nutrients. They're all going to be high in iron. So from a practical point of view, either one is fine. I chose beef liver most of the time, but you can have other forms and it's still going to be good. We got Ryan joining in. Hi again, Lee. Another biking question for you. When you do huge cycling days, how many calories approximately are you adding to your normal daily intake? That's a great question, and this one really follows up nicely with the whole idea of calorie consumption, because with weight training, you don't burn a lot of calories. I know that might come as a shock to some people, but a typical weight training workout, you're probably burning 10 to 12 calories per set. Like, just round off, just say 10 calories a set. That's typical. Now, I mean, it will vary depending on the exercise. Like, obviously, a set of bicep curls is going to burn less calories than a set of squats, but on average, you're looking at most people are going to burn approximately 10 calories per set, right? So that's not a lot. Like, if you do 20 sets, that's 200 calories. If you do 40 sets, right, that's 400 calories. Like, it's not a lot of calorie expenditure. Now, there is a little bit of an afterburn effect in that whole recovery process. Your metabolism will remain elevated, so you'll burn a little bit extra calories afterwards. But the overall calorie expenditure from a weight training workout is not great. But with cardio, especially if you're doing prolonged cardio, it can be massive. Like, it adds up. And of course, it'll vary depending on the intensity and the duration and all that stuff. But a big cycling day, it's insane how many calories you can burn. So like last weekend, for example, I did my first big ride of the year. It was, I did 125 kilometers, 5-hour ride, and the calorie consumption estimate, this is according to my bike computer, I think it was somewhere in the range of, it was over 3,000 calories. I don't remember the exact amount, but it was a 3,000 plus calorie cardio session. So obviously you need to nourish that. And anybody who's done any prolonged endurance exercise understands this, but you need to nourish. Like, pre and intra workout nutrition becomes vital when you're doing prolonged exercise sessions. If you're only going to the gym for an hour or two, you can get by with what you have stored in your body, like your stored glycogen levels within the muscle, stored glycogen within the liver. That'll get you through an hour or two. Once you start going beyond 2 hours, that's when intra-workout nutrition becomes a factor, because you'll literally burn through your muscle glycogen, you'll burn through your liver glycogen, and you'll hit the wall. And if you've never hit the wall before, it's referred to as bonking in endurance sports. It's a very unpleasant feeling. Like, you literally run out of glycogen, and it gets to the point where you could be feeling fine, and then it's just nothing. And you could have lightheadedness, you could feel dizzy, you just feel so weak and fatigued, like you don't even have the energy to keep going, like the power down the pedals. It's just literally like pulling the plug. Like, your energy drains. And to kind of give you a visualization of it, imagine driving your car, right? You're driving your car. Oh, the car is wonderful. You're driving along, and all of a sudden you run out of gas. Bloop, 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 bloop. Well, that car that was wonderful 5 minutes ago is all of a sudden, once it runs out of gas, it's out of gas. It ain't going anywhere. And that's the way your body kind of functions when you run out of glycogen. It just shuts down. It bonks. So intra-workout nutrition, constantly fueling yourself while you're exercising, is critical once you get into sessions that are beyond 2 hours. Like, most people have enough glycogen stored within their system to handle 2 hours. Once you start going into 3, 4, 5, 6 hours and beyond, that's when intra-workout nutrition is vital. Again, just like trying to drive your car. I mean, if you probably, you drive back and forth to work, you head over to the grocery store, oh, no big deal. But if you say, hey, we're going to drive across the country, and we're not going to fuel up along the way, but we're just going to keep going. The car is going to run out of gas, and it's not going to go anywhere, right? You have to fuel up along the way. When you go on a long drive, same applies when you're doing a long cardio session. You have to fuel up along the way, right? Or you're going to run out. So how I handle it is, with my cycling workouts, I will put carbohydrate powder and amino acids in my water bottles. It varies, but probably upwards of 50 grams of carbs and a scoop of amino acid powder, plus some electrolytes in with a water bottle. And I'll have that. So I'll constantly be filling that up, as well as, during the rides itself. Like, usually about every hour, I'll also have an energy bar. I usually have Cliff bars is one of my favorite ones. So that's giving me some extra carbohydrates, a little bit extra protein and fat there as well. But that's typical for when I go on one of these long rides is I'm sipping a carbohydrate and amino acid mix in my water bottles. And then I'm having a Cliff Bar every hour of approximately during the ride. So I constantly am fueling up. And the general rule of thumb for in long distance endurance training like that, eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. Don't wait until you're hungry to start eating. Don't wait until you're thirsty to start drinking, because if you wait until then, it's too late. You're already running into a deficit. You need to stay on top of the curve. And if you do that, then that's what allows people to get into these ultra distances where you're going doing multi-hours, long duration cardio sessions. So that's my big thing. That's where the biggest calorie change happens, is actually during the ride itself. Now, with that being said, I'll also make sure to have a big breakfast beforehand so that I'm fueled up before. Also afterwards, I'm usually pretty hungry, so I'll have a big meal afterwards. But it's not what happens off the bike isn't as crazy as what happens on the bike. The biggest calorie consumption is I'm trying to replenish the calories that I'm burning while I'm actually out there. So drinking the carbohydrate powder, eating the Cliff energy bars. And for some guys, like for some high intensity endurance athletes, like they're consuming 100 grams of carbs an hour during exercise. Like you think of someone like running an Ironman or something like that, or long distance cyclists, like you see guys in the Tour de France or something like that, or these ultra distance cycling events. A lot of them are consuming up to 100 grams of carbs per hour of activity. So yeah, it can add up to a lot for sure. All right, moving on. What else we got? Ted the Lad. I hear that dumbbell chest flies are better done on the floor rather than on the bench. You can do them on the floor. Is it better? Well, it depends what you consider better. If you're doing a floor press or a floor fly or anything like that, you're limited with your range of motion, because I'll just move your question here so I can show your arms are only going to come back so far in a fly before they hit the floor. Same if you're doing a press. You're only going to come back so far before your elbows hit the floor. So it's great from if you want to limit the range of motion and prevent overstretching and prevent going too deep, then floor presses, floor flies, whatever, are a good alternative. And a lot of power lifters will actually incorporate that as an assistant exercise to increase their bench press. They might do floor presses. You could try doing flies on the floor as well. Certain exercises actually, depending on the movement, can work good on the floor, but it limits the range of motion. So if your idea of better is having a shorter range of motion, then we could make the argument, yeah, it's better. If you're trying to do it and you want maximum range of motion, then no, it's not. So it really depends on what it is you're trying to train for, but it's another alternative. And the way I look at it, when it comes to all these exercises, instead of saying that this is better, this is worse, this is right, this is wrong, think of it like another tool in the toolbox, right? It has a purpose. It's like saying, well, a screwdriver is better than a hammer. In certain situations, it is. In other situations, a hammer is better than a screwdriver. It depends what we're trying to do, right? If I want to put a nail into a piece of board, a hammer is much more effective. If I want to put a screw into a piece of board, then a screwdriver is more effective. It's not right, wrong, good or bad. This is better, this is worse. It's what are we trying to do? So if you're trying to shorten the range of motion and not overstretch the muscles, the floor press could be better. If you're trying to increase the range of motion and get that full stretch of the muscles, then using a bench would be better. So hopefully that helps to answer that one. Okay, what else we got there? Chris says, I know it's not right, but I have thought about using growth hormone just to help. What are your thoughts? Well, again, it's not right, wrong, good, or bad. It's another tool in the toolbox. And that applies with hormone replacement therapy. If you are concerned about your hormones, go get them checked out through a doctor or a hormone replacement therapy clinic so that they can help you. Because trying to figure this stuff out on, like, hey, I was thinking about using this, maybe I'll just go and try some. You may or you may not need it. Like it's be good to figure out what your hormones actually are and then be able to adjust things accordingly. Because going down the hormone replacement therapy rabbit hole, it's not it's not a quick fix solution. It's not like, hey, I'm just going to take this and all my woes are going to be solved and everything's going to be great. there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of back and forth testing. There's a lot of blood work that needs to be done. It's like I've talked to guys who are going through this. Like several of my coaching students in the Muscle After 40 Blueprint are using hormone replacement therapy, and they're sharing some of the challenges. Like you don't want it too high, you don't want it too low. And then if it does get too high, then it may cause other hormones to get elevated, and then you may need some other auxiliary medications to combat that. And you're always tweaking the dosages, trying to get it just right. Because again, you don't want it too high, because too high causes side effects, just the same as too low causes side effects. You want it just right, right? Again, it's like that Goldilocks rule, right? We don't too much, don't want too little, we want it just right. And that's always a back and forth test. And, you know, like a lot of guys who are doing hormone replacement therapy, they're usually getting blood work every 3 months. And then they're adjusting their routine, their prescription every time they get it done. Like, hey, maybe we need to bump it up, maybe we need to scale it back, maybe we need to modify stuff. You know, if the red blood cells start to get too high, maybe we'll have to do a blood dump, and you know, have to donate blood because you don't want too high a red blood cell count. Like there's a lot to it. It's not just, hey, let's all get on hormones and get jacked, right? It's not as simple as that. There's a lot of work to it, and that's why you really should need to do this through a doctor supervision or through the supervision of a hormone replacement specialist. So that's what I'd recommend. I mean, if you're curious about it, hey, by all means, go get it checked out. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But don't just try and wing it on your own, because that could open up a whole can of worms. It really can. If you want some more information about this, go to my main YouTube channel and find the video that I did with Mike Brown. Mike, he's a member of the Muscle After 40 Blueprint. He's openly using hormone replacement therapy, and it's helping him tremendously. And he shares a lot of this stuff in that video interview that we did, right? Like later in the interview, when we get into talking about this, he talks about the challenges, you know, of having to go through it, you know, going through the challenges of having it too high and then having to take other medication to combat some of the side effects, and then back and forth blood work and stuff like that to get it just right. So if you're looking for real world information about hormone replacement therapy, check that out. Again, it's under the Muscle After 40 Success Story playlist. And again, go to my main YouTube channel. You should find that there. But watch that video that I did with Mike Brown. He was phenomenal. Like, I mean, he's a great coaching student. He's made an amazing transformation. And again, he pulls no punches. I mean, he shares exactly, you know, how he went through the whole process and the pros and the cons and all that along with it. So anyone who's interested in this, I would highly recommend checking out that video with Mike Brown. What else we got there? Tad saying that I usually eat a high carb meal the night before I do a heavy deadlift. That could be certainly advantageous. You know, I mean, fueling for the workouts that you're going to do can be an advantageous process for sure, especially if you're trying to maximize your strength and performance. Fueling the machine is effective. And I just want to, I know it's kind of like a side topic here on this question, or it's not even a question, it's just a comment, but a lot of times in the bodybuilding world, we're so obsessed with fat loss and cutting and depletion and fasting and low carbs and blah, blah, blah. A lot of people take that to the extreme and then not fueling their training. And if you're not fueling your efforts in the gym, it can have a big negative impact on your strength, your athletic performance, your muscle gain, all that stuff. Nutrition is huge. Like, we want optimal nutrition, not just simply trying to starve yourself. And I see this a lot, like guys, especially if they're trying to train for fat loss, it's just deplete, starve, cut. And some people will go to extreme measures, you know, from prolonged fasting to different types of like low carb diets to intermittent fasting or whatever. But it's just like starve the fat, deplete, deprive, be in a deficit. And it's not thinking of, they're just trying to deprive instead of nourish. And we want to do the opposite. You want to nourish your body so that it I can't say it. Nourish your body so that you get optimal health and fitness benefits. And then that will help with the fat loss. Like, get healthy so you can lose fat, not lose fat to try and get healthy. Right? It's like you want to nourish the body through proper high nutrient foods, not just simply trying to deplete and starve and deprive, because the whole deplete, starve, and deprive is not a sustainable long-term solution. But nourishing is. If you nourish your body, then what often happens is it helps to control your appetite. It helps to control your cravings. And then you end up eating more high nutrient foods, helps to speed up your metabolism, increase your energy. You're able to train harder, burn more calories through your exercise. And then because you're eating better food choices, you don't have those, cravings for the not so good foods, the processed foods. And it just helps to create this upward spiral of positive results versus the negative spiral that can come about when you just simply try and starve yourself and deprive, and then ultimately can't stand it and then end up binge eating later on and going through that whole rebound process. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with fueling before a proper workout, right? If you know you're going to do a heavy workout, fuel in advance and you'll get the maximum performance from that workout. Nitro says, I'm 21% body fat at novice strength level. Should I bulk or cut? Neither. Focus on just fueling your training, high nutrient dense foods, getting as fit and healthy as possible, and achieve what's known as a body recomposition. So don't try and be in a calorie surplus. Don't try to be in a calorie deficit. Focus on eating to match your energy needs, and then let your body build muscle, let it burn body fat, and let the process happen naturally. And this, in the Muscle After 40 blueprint, this is the first phase of the program. We call it the metabolic reboot phase. And the whole goal of it is just to optimize your lifestyle habits, your nutrition habits, to increase your strength, increase your energy, increase your overall health and performance, and focus on optimizing things. And then once you've optimized everything and you have a good high standard in place, then we can tweak it accordingly based on how your body's responding and what you want to focus on. Like if you really want to get cut for beach vacation or a photo shoot, or maybe you want to do a bodybuilding show or whatever, like you want to push the limits and get the visible six-pack abs, then we can incorporate what's known as our advanced fat loss strategy phase, the fat loss accelerator, or we can move into the lean gain body recomp phase. And we have these phases built into the program. But phase one is the metabolic reboot, where you just want to focus on improving your overall strength, energy, eating habits, lifestyle habits, and getting yourself in optimal health and fitness. So bulking and cutting should not be part of your vocabulary at this stage of the game. Optimal nutrition is what you want to focus on. And again, if you want some help with this, like, feel free to reach out to me, right? Like if you want to drop me an email or Facebook message me or whatever, feel free to do so. Contact information is down in the video description below. Reach out and we can have a chat about this, brainstorm some ideas and strategies that are right for you. All right, how are we doing? Well, we're at the hour mark, so I'm going to get ready and clue this up very soon. Let's see what else we got. There's a bunch of questions coming through here, and this is good. I mean, I appreciate the questions, appreciate the support and all that, but of course, I'm not going to get through them all today. I'm just going to run through here. Let's see what we got. What we got here? On Dead Hurt 66. All right. Said, Lee, I've been wondering why some products, such as protein chips or snacks that are low calorie, abruptly change their calories almost overnight. Sometimes the old and new packages sometimes coexist. All right. I'm not exactly sure which products you're referring to there, but and also another follow-up question. He says the macros will be off as well. I'm going to just kind of give you a little insider heads up here when it comes to nutritional labels. They're not accurate. That applies to supplement nutrition labels. It applies to food nutrition labels. It applies to virtually all nutrition labels. The FDA allows for a margin of error of 20%. That's a legal margin of error. Supplement companies could be outside the legal limits and be getting away with it. And of course, when you're looking at foods, you're saying, like in the previous question there, or the previous part of your question, why do they change? Maybe they change their formula. Maybe they change their ingredients. Maybe they change whatever. There's something in, we have the old version, we have the new version, and something changed and they needed to update it. Or maybe they got caught and then someone did a third-party analysis and realized, hey, you're saying this is 100 calories per serving, but in reality, it's 130 calories per serving. You need to update your nutrition label because, it's false. It's not accurate. And the thing with nutrition and food labels and stuff, it varies greatly. And it's not only in food labels and products that have multiple ingredients, but like even in a single ingredient food, the nutritional value can vary greatly. Like if I have a banana, the nutritional information of that banana, the nutritional content of that banana can vary greatly depending on the level of ripeness of the banana. So a single ingredient, natural, unprocessed food, a banana, and this could apply to any fruit or vegetable or whatever, but I'm just using bananas as an example. If you take a green banana, it's going to have higher levels of starch, lower levels of sugar. You take a yellow banana, it's going to have a combination of both starches and sugar. If you take a brown spotty banana, it's going to be mostly sugar because it starts to break down. And if you've ever eaten a green banana, you can taste it. It tastes kind of starchy and it's a bit bitter. It's a bit starchy. You eat the yellow banana, it's kind of like, okay, that's the ideal. You eat the green spotty banana, and it does. It has that almost like sickly sweet taste as the sugars are breaking down within the banana. You know, all the starches are breaking down into sugars. So even that alone, the nutrition information just varied in one ingredient depending on the level of ripeness. Now, imagine when you have processed foods that have a dozen or more different ingredients in it, and it's all concocted and mashed up into whatever recipe they have. Each one of these can vary depending on numerous variables. So like it's a ballpark estimate at best. When you see a nutrition label and it says there's 100 calories per serving and there's 20 grams of protein or there's whatever, it's a ballpark estimate. It could be higher, it could be lower. Legally, it's allowed to be 20% off, but it could be way off. And sometimes they will do third-party analysis where people will actually test these foods, you know, in a lab to break it down and say, okay, how much protein is actually in this? How many calories are actually in this? Fats, carbs, whatever. And it could be way off. Like I know a while back there was it was all over the internet several years ago. It's like maybe a decade ago or so now. But there were certain protein powders that were claiming really high protein per serving. And a third-party company got a hold of some, and they actually, you know, did that third-party analysis. And they said, you know, your label claims the actual protein is not even half of what the label claim is. Like, I think they were claiming there was like 30 grams of protein per scoop. And when they actually tested it, it was something like 16 grams of protein per scoop. So it's all over the place, right? It's really a crapshoot. So for those that are tracking calories and macros and everything else and thinking that it's some exact science, it's not. It's far from an exact science. It's a ballpark estimate at best. What I would recommend for anybody who is trying to track their food, track your portions. Track your portions and then modify your portions accordingly. So like if you're trying to lose weight, scale back your portions a little bit. If you're trying to gain weight, then bump up your portions a little bit. Like, because portions are pretty consistent generally. I mean, even though, as I mentioned with the bananas, it can vary depending on numerous factors, but portion size is a better guideline than just the pure calories. Now, again, I'm not saying that tracking calories or tracking macros is bad, but just realize what it is. It's a ballpark estimate. It's not an exact science. Because some people swear by their numbers, thinking, oh, I'm eating, 197 grams of protein because that's what my fitness pal says. And like, you could be 250 grams, you might be 150 grams or anywhere in between or way off. Like it's a guess, right? You're in the ballpark, right? It's not precise by any stretch of the imagination. And you don't need to be precise. You just need to be good enough, but good enough consistently, not spot on, right? Like as long as you're in the ballpark, but you stay in the ballpark, then you can still make progress. Versus some people who try to be super strict, super meticulous, and overkill, or then they say, screw it, I'm not doing anything at all. Like you see that all the time where people go on a strict diet and they'll track and measure and record and everything's so meticulous for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then they say, F this, and then I'm going to the all-you-can-eat buffet, I'm going to the ice cream shop, I'm going to pizza and beer and Doritos. Or they go from one extreme to the other, right? Like you just want to be good enough, but good enough consistently. And if you can be good enough and good enough consistently, you can still make this work, even if it's not precise. And it's not precise. All right. I'm going to clue this up, guys. Hopefully you got some value out of it. Like you're saying, thanks. We'll do good stuff. All right. Well, guys, hopefully you did enjoy the video chat. And if you have any questions, you want to follow up on anything that we discussed here, whether you got questions about your workouts, your nutrition, or whatever, or you want some help with a customized program, feel free to reach out to me. Again, my contact information is down below. leeh@leehayward.com is my email. Friend me up over on Facebook or message me through there. Send me a private message. We can chat through there. And in the meantime, I'm going to clue it up, and I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Take care. Over and out.